there, Let's Talk Sports fans. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Let's Talk New York Sports, our Friday sit down show, I guess you could say, with my very good friend and co host, Keith Engle from TGI Sports Talk. How you doing this week, Keith?
I am doing well, Dan. It's great to be back with you. As I've told you for since we started doing this, when I see you, I know that the work week has officially come to an end, and I can end it with some fun conversation with you and maybe even adult beverage, you know, before we know it.
Yeah. Who looking forward to you enjoying the weekend. I know you're multitasking at the moment due to your situation, so I'm not sure I'd recommend house renovation and an adult beverage, but I know you like to live on the dangerous side, so perhaps that's
Well,
part of the attraction, Keith.
we'll leave the skill saw off, and all the power tools will be off. So we won't do that. In my younger days, what the hell? We chop down a tree and chop it all up and drink a 12 pack of beer. Hopefully, end up with as many fingers as you started with. But those days are gone. I'm a little smarter these days. Not much, but a little.
So, Keith, before we jump right in, how did your show go earlier with Carlos?
It
Sorry.
went pretty. It went pretty well. We kind of dove into some of the Mets issues and talked a little Yankees and um, debated a little bit some of the new rules that are working and aren't working. We talked Jets. That got to a little bit more of a lively place, I think, and so did the Knicks conversation because he still wants Tibbs fired, obviously, despite the fact that the Knicks had a very successful season by any standards, based on what we thought we would see this year. And we talked a little bit about how we might go about improving them. So it was a good hour, had a lot of fun. So check that out. And also, I'll mention real quick the Dick Drago interview with former Major League Baseball pitcher Dick Drago will air tonight at 7. I did that interview with him last night. Went very well. One of the heroes of the probably the best World Series in my lifetime, the 1975 World Series with the Reds and the Red Sox. So had a lot of fun with Dick last night.
Yeah, looking forward to checking that out. I think he can talk with Tanner next week as well,
Oh, good.
being a Royals fan. So looking forward to that. And
CA's
um,
with us. CA's with us. He's followed me around all day today. He's become my stalker, CA. Good to have you with us, CA. And Bobby G, welcome, Bobby G. And yes, I did hear while I was doing the Major League Baseball update earlier that NFL great Jim Brown had passed away here this afternoon. Very sad to hear, one of the great players in NFL history.
yeah, so Bobby G is big contributor on Let's Talk Sports, has his own channel mainly devoted to college basketball, football. So very big in that. We have a show on Wednesday, and Browns fan, yeah, Jim Brown. Very big fan of him. I think he was game changer at his position. I think it's unfortunate that we didn't get to see him longer than we did. I feel we could have done, but as big as his impact on the field was as big off it, he certainly
Yeah,
lived an active life, and I do feel he was a bit of a trailblazer, helping lead a path to other people to follow him. So anyone that hasn't checked it out, please check out his Football Life documentary based on him. I thought it was a great episode, just learning more about him off the field.
yeah, I did a lot of things in the inner cities throughout this country, and just you know gave back. Not a perfect human being by any stretch of the imagination, but who among us is? So again, my condolences. I'm sure our condolences go out to his family, and rest in peace, Jim.
I agree. Yeah, it took me aback when I saw that earlier on. You know, um, it just, I know it wasn't a young age, but just sometimes when someone's had a big impact on a sport or whatever they do, then just when you hear the news, it's just a bit of a shock. So, yeah,
Oh,
that made me step back.
yeah, I've had a lot of that. I've reached an age where, it seems weekly one of the sports icons that I grew up um, watching, rooting for, rooting against, are passing away. A lot of great ones in all the sports, and it's one of the sad parts of getting older. You watch your youth fade away quicker than you do, fortunately, but they gave us a lot of joy too. So you have to count your blessings.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So, everyone, two things I want to promote. First of all, Keith's channel, TGI Sports Talk. Please drop Keith's channel, follow whether you like his epic rants about Kyrie and others. Just wants his Sunday stream of consciousness where he just talks with the community for a couple of hours, or him and Carlos chopping it up, or something what we work on together. His one-on-one show keeps the best in the business for asking the tough questions, if you will, and I love working with him behind the scenes, booking the guests. So if you want to support me, support Keith by following TGI Sports Talk.
I appreciate that, them kind words. Sometimes the questions are harder than other times, but we have fun asking them. Sometimes we get the answer we want. Sometimes we get we get a little silence or somebody yelling back at you. But it's all fun. We have a lot of fun doing the show, and I appreciate the help you've given me getting some of the guys that I got tired of chasing around. So great job.
No problem at all. And Sunday, our mutual friend Nick Bodkins has the 1 year anniversary of his channel, his first birthday, if you will, at 8 o'clock Central Times and 9 p.m. Eastern. He's got his 1 year birthday show. He's asked me to book the guests for him, plan it for him. He doesn't want to know the guests. Trust me to plan everything. So, yeah, that could be interesting. I recommend everyone support Nick in this. Very proud that he's reached this point, and a few little surprises will turn up for him along the hour as well.
Well, I have a little gripe with Mr. Bodkins. He popped in my show this morning, but the other night I just happened upon one of his shows, and there was talk about me and Scott living in a nursing home, and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I think it was something about the only people older than me and Keith. I'm sorry, he did mention me specifically. This was this morning. The only people older than me are the Mets starting pitchers. They're the only ones who come close to my age in this group. So I don't know why I'm suddenly Nick's target. The ageism is really disturbing. But oh well.
I was going to say that has come up a few times. I know Alan has brought it up a few times. That seems it's definitely a running joke. So, yeah. I can't say it's necessarily age friendly, but
Well, that's all right. I'm not a litigious type of person, so there'll be no lawsuits or anything. So we'll be fine. I did laugh the other
so
night.
yeah.
I just came in at the right time, and it was something about Johnny joining Keith and Scott at the nursing home, and I'm like, "What? What did I walk into here?"
So, um. Yeah, I recommend everyone to check it out. There'll also be a giveaway. I'm donating a jersey, so you have to tune in live because there'll be a key phrase and you'll have to comment that in the chat. So I recommend you join the party, if you will. Um, Keith, let's jump right in. So, starting with your Patriots, there's been a bit of movement along the O line, and it seems like the fan base seemed to be in a bit of a panic, which surprised me because it's not like it's any of your stars. You brought one guy in, took one guy out. To be honest with you, I consider it the natural progression because you've got a new OC now and possibly a guy what you maybe have as your swing tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe O'Brien wants someone else in. Maybe it doesn't fit his scheme. So big deal or no big deal, Keith?
I don't think it's a big deal. Listen, this offensive line was in disarray. It's been in disarray for a while. Um, they just subtracted a couple guys. Well, most notably, oh my gosh, can't believe I forgot Win. They removed Win from the roster. I think he might be with the Dolphins. I'm not sure. Uh,
Dolphins, yeah.
yeah, I thought so. Isaiah Wynn. Um, but a big addition that people aren't talking about here is the fact that they hired Adrian Clem to be the offensive line coach, who I've talked about probably here. I've talked about other places. That Patriot legendary offensive line coach and certainly has done other things within the organization. Dante Scarnecchia has been after the Patriots to track this guy down for a couple of years now. He's most recently out of University of Oregon, and by all accounts, he's a really, really good offensive line coach. So, coupled with the fact that you've got a new play caller and game planner in Bill O'Brien, and the fact that we've got a real offensive line coach, I'm confident that this group will play better together. Plus, you've got Cole Strange, who played really well for the most part last year as a rookie. You got hopefully David Andrews healthy, and you've got some guys coming in from the draft to kind of push these guys in training camp a little bit as well. And I think all of that will bode for it being an improved unit, not just the offensive line, but the offense in general. And I don't understand and we're going to get into it a little bit with Alan. I know Scott and I are going to be on with Alan Monday night to talk Patriots, but everybody I talk to is a doomsayer about the Patriots. Going to finish last, going to have 5 wins. Listen, I think you know me. I don't wear rose-colored glasses when it comes to my teams. This team will be better this year than it was last year. They're better than 8 wins. Bill O'Brien's worth 2 wins to this team right now. Bill O'Brien and the staff he's put together. So I don't understand the sky is falling people, but we'll see. Let it play out, and we'll see how it goes.
Um, I agree. Look, the way I see it is anything will be an improvement. So, from that point of view, um, I think it may be an upturn. Now, how much? Look, from the win was the biggest subtraction, but he was injured half the time anyway. So,
It was.
whereas um, he's a decent player when he's on the field, but I do feel his how can I put this, contribution was less over time. I do feel so.
Oh,
How much of a loss is that we will see?
it's not a loss. When he wasn't hurt, he was holding. So it's it's fine that he's gone. Believe me.
Yeah. Um. So, moving to the Bills. We talked about their drafting and their additions. One interesting thing is they've made a few changes to their scouting office or room this week. Do you feel that that's a sign that they may be not necessarily happy with what they've done?
Uh, I mean, you can certainly read it that way, and I think, as we've talked about here, I think this this staff in general probably is starting to feel a little bit of pressure. They've been on the cusp for a couple of years. The window in this league is not open for that long. Look at the Rams, right? And what's happened to them the last few years after being in two Super Bowls. They bottomed out last year, and you've got to win when you when you have the opportunity. And I think this coaching staff is feeling that pressure. So I think they're looking behind all the doors and under all the furniture to find what they can find. And I think they're still a little concerned about their offensive line and maybe some of the defensive pieces that have left, including their defensive coordinator. So I think this is going to be an interesting division, as we've talked about, Dan. I think any one of these teams can finish first and any can finish last. And if the Bills were to fall to the bottom of this division, I think there might be some significant changes in this organization.
Um, yeah, I do agree with that. I think this is the year what they've really got to not so much make some noise because they've already done that, but
Yeah.
can they move to the next level? They're no longer sort of a plucky team what's rebuilding. They were true contenders last year, and I do think you can make the argument that they kind of fell flat on their face. It's no longer the Patriots, the standard in this division. So, Keith, I don't mean this um to troll you, but they are the presumed winners of the division, and
Oh
they
yeah.
need to justify that now.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. This is again, it's a win now league, and they have been knocking on the door. Now you need to kick it in, right? So, to use an old cliche.
Yeah, I agree. So, yeah, we'll see how that plays out. But before we move to the Giants, did CA have a question he
CA
was
CA had
asking?
a comment, I think, more than anything. He's talked about other Keith and other Pat fans have an opportunity to help all their Packer friends with the same realities and avoid panic attacks. I'm not sure exactly what it means, other than I think he would like us to take care of the Aaron Rodgers business this year, potentially.
Um, yeah, it could well um be. It will be interesting how that goes. Keith, we best talk Giants if it's let's talk New York sports. A pick what I know you liked quite a lot in the wide receiver they drafted Jalen Hyatt.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people what feel that the pick is a lot better than it's maybe being evaluated that he there's value there of a high second round pick, and with there it being such a position of need that he has a chance to elevate himself to be one of their top playmakers from someone what knows far more than college football than I do. Do you agree with that?
I do. He's an explosive talent. He has first round talent at wideout. It just happened that I think because of the money financial issues of where you draft guys in the first round, I think a lot of the wide receivers fell in this draft further than we thought they might. And Hyatt, this guy could turn out to be one of the better uh, picks in this draft. I like him, and I like his running mate too, whose name is now escaping me. I'm having one of those Friday day moments, but I think you put Hyatt together, and if Slayton's healthy, if Hodgkins can continue to progress the way he did the end of last year, and he had a really big playoff game, as we know, against the Vikings, and Wandale Robinson can stay healthy, this giant wide receiver core could suddenly be a lot better uh, than we thought it might be. And I think Hyatt will be a contributor out of the gate here. He's got NFL talent. I don't think it's going to take a whole lot of time for him to get his foothold here and be a contributor to this offense.
So, what do you think? Look, it's always hard when they're coming out, but what do you think his ceiling is? Do you view him as a number one receiver, or do you view him as a high end number two?
Well, on this roster, definitely number one. If he was on a little bit better wide receiver room, I might say high end too. But I think he's got number one potential, especially on this Giant team for sure. Maybe as soon as midseason this year, he could be the guy on this team.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. And look, the way I see it is he has a chance to be the true number one now. If you bring in a guy better than him, as you saw, as you've seen with the Bengals, the more good receivers you have, the better. But to be honest with you, I don't think there's many places he could have been drafted, and he wouldn't to have been in a better situation where there's literally basically barely anyone. And look, if you speak to Carlos, maybe not, but he's in a decent situation with his quarterback as well.
He's in a good situation for sure. Again, Carlos notwithstanding. And Giant fans, I think you're going to be very impressed with what you see out of Hyatt. And I would not be shocked to see your top two wide receivers this year be this year's wide receiver picking Hyatt and last year's picking Wandell Robinson be your top two wide receivers before this year is out. I think Wandell Robinson will take another step. If he stays healthy, I can see him taking that step here in year two.
I agree with that. I do feel people last year when he was drafted, people slept on him for whatever reason, and this year people kind of forgot about him.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I'm trying to see what the CA's got to say here. He's talking about both the Jets and Giants have interesting rosters and staff systems. Vague outlooks. I'm not sure what that means. Could play to their advantage. Maybe they're talking about the schedules they have in front of them. I'm not sure what the vague outlooks actually means, CA. But because both these teams are these New York's very rarely had the Jets and Giants with high expectations in the same year. And you're going to see it this year because both these teams have very high ceilings, I think, myself.
Yeah. Um, I do agree with that. I think it's going to be very interesting. And look, if both teams are good, that's good for the NFL, in my opinion.
Agreed. I mean, every league has teams. Every league's better when the teams that are in the big cities are competitive and contenders. And the NFL is no different.
Yeah, I do agree with that. So Keith, moving to the Jets, probably the biggest news around the team at this point is something we've talked about a lot, and that is Quinn Williams. I hate this move, but taking the team off your social media. Uh, how do you see this playing out? You've got to believe a deal will get done, but according to reports, they're nowhere close. But I personally think, and I don't think this should be the case, but I think with Aaron Rodgers' deal being done, in their mind, they think, well, can wait a year if needs be. We've still got the franchise tag in our back pockets. I kind of think Aaron Rodgers deal and that they've got to restructure his deal. They think, let's get this done and then we'll see about Brennan. Do you think that's playing a big part in, shall we say, no deal being done?
Yeah, I think it probably is. And I mean, look at if Quinnen Williams, and again, you got to be careful because your careers, these guys' careers could be very short. We don't know, right? It's a violent game, and it could be cut short at any time. But if he were just to be patient, he's going to get paid, and he's going to get paid very well in this league. And he's part of a team. He doesn't want to take a risk on forcing himself off a team that's going to be a championship contender, most likely the next 2 years, at least. And he'll get his money. It will work out. This team doesn't need this type of distraction, I don't think, right out of the gate. As you're trying to, you're going to get into OTAs pretty soon, and they need everybody pulling in the same direction. That's the only way you win championships. You don't win championships with guys, go swimming up against the stream. And there's always seems to be one guy on every team that's going to be that way. Does Quinnen Williams deserve the money? Most likely, but maybe you need to wait your turn. Sometimes you just need to wait your turn.
It's one of those, look, in some way, the Jets should have foreseen this. He said in the post-match interview, last game of the season, there's no movement. If there's still no deal done, I'm not attending any OTAs or camp. And I said to Johnny at the time, from a guy what basically says nothing, his press conferences are normally butterflies and flowers. For that, him to say that was the signal of intent to me. Looking at it from his point of view, he has always attended every OTA, obviously not missed any sort of training, never really been a problem. So I think from his point of view, he's seen 4 or 5 of his draft mates in his position be paid in the last 3 months, which it was, he's kind of telling you that by at the same time of taking them off his socials, he tweeted out and shared Dexter Lawrence contract announcement, of course, in the same facility. So I think the fact that everyone else is being paid in his position, he's kind of seeing that as a insult in his mind.
Yeah, but these guys, they look at these things in a vacuum, Dan, right? I mean, every situation isn't different. Every cap situation isn't the same, and not every team can afford to pay their stars at the same time, right? And the Jets obviously have some cap things to work through. They just cut Carl Lawson's salary, I think, by about, I don't know, $5 million, maybe
Um,
$6 million, right?
Basically, he was due to make 12 million plus bonuses, and he did it down almost 5 million.
Yeah,
And he hasn't. Is
incentives.
generally when you rework it, the guarantees is more the next year, but it's not. So he's actually took a pay cut. He hasn't took the deal,
Right.
move the money around. So props to him. I do think that is part of it. You would hope what they've said to him is, look, you will be paid. This is how much we'll pay you. Just we've got to wait on it. But the word coming out is that there's been no dialogue, which to me, I'm a big fan of Joe Douglas. But the one thing you can say is this is getting a bit similar to how they dealt with Jamal Adams, because I wasn't saying they had to pay him, but how he said, well, we want him a Jet for life, and then there's never any indication of paying him. He's got to get this deal done, or they've got a lot of young talent, and the last thing you want is a history of paying outside forces who you bring in the money and not paying your guys. So
Well, that's the
how
danger
you handle it. Yeah,
when you bring in a $60 million quarterback. That's the danger that you face, right? Because you're not going to be able to pay some guys that have been here and have earned it. But
yeah,
again, wait your turn and you'll get your money. Everybody wants it's no different than the rest of the world, right? Everybody wants to get paid, and everybody wants to get paid now. But But with a hard cap, unlike other leagues, you just can't always facilitate that to happen. So I don't know. I mean, again, it becomes a distraction that the Jets really don't need when you're in the middle of a feel good off season, right? Everything's gone really smoothly and really good because you got Aaron Rodgers. You brought in some weapons that he either did or didn't have on a wish list, and now all of a sudden, you've got a little bit of some sour juice thrown on this situation. So we'll see.
Um, but one thing what I will say is all these players tweeted out that they wanted Aaron Rodgers. Let's see how
Yeah,
much they want him when he's not taking this, because everyone knew the money had to be reworked. 'Cause at this point he's earning 1 million, and next year he's earning 100 million. So there's always gonna have to move money around.
yeah. Again, manipulating a salary cap is a full time job in the NFL now. That's why teams have guys that's all they do is figure out how to move the money around and make all the pieces fit.
I agree. I mean, it's gonna be. I've always been a big component just because I know how Joe Douglas does it. I think they might actually let. I think they'll view it as we've always got the tag, and I think he'll play a year under the tag. I could be wrong, but they did mention that in one of their press conferences that you're forgetting it's not really that long because there's the tag as well, which is our right, and that's kind of a signal of intent by mentioning it publicly.
Yeah, I think so. And again, if you're not going to take the team at their word, then there's a problem. He'll get paid, right? Just go out and do your job, and you'll get paid.
If I'm him, if he feel because last year, the last 2 years, in fact, he's had a big leap upwards in production. The franchise tag is actually good position because if you play under that for years, which is top five money, then that adds another year onto
Mhm.
essentially your deal. So I think that's actually good position for him to be in. It's just not long term
The only time it's
security.
yeah, the only time it's not a good thing, Dan, is if he gets hurt, right? And then all bets are off for him. That's why he wants the security of that long term deal, which I totally understand. But you're going to get your money now, and with the tag, as you said, and there's always going to be somebody unhappy because you manipulate the money as best you can. There's always somebody left holding the bag a little bit, so he'll be fine.
Andre, and as you mentioned there, shout out Carl Lawson. He didn't have to rework his deal, and in a world where they've had three players, at least two of their new signings from last year, move the money around and didn't take less, and they didn't perform as well as a Carl Lawson. I think this guarantees that he'll be around next year, because whereas it's not guaranteed, he was due to make 13 million next year, which they may or may not have carried him, but on 8 million, I think that guarantees that he'll be around for the next 2 seasons.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think he's an important guy on this defense because he is a veteran presence, right? That there's a lot of young guys still. As good as this defense is, there's still a lot of young guys on this defense, and they need that type of you know guidance. I think to help navigate these treacherous NFL waters because you're on top one day and you're barely in the middle of the pack the next day. So you gotta keep moving forward, and I think Carl Lawson's a good guy to have to keep these guys heads where they belong.
I agree. And what people have to understand, coming off his second ACL, he didn't miss a game last year. So I think there's an expectation that his production will go up. And he come, he was ready for day 1 of camp, didn't miss a thing. And it come out later on that in January. He reoccurred with injury, but played through training camp with it. So I like that. I like that toughness
Yeah,
from him,
yeah.
and he's more keen than people think.
And just like we talked about with Saquon Barkley last year, sometimes it takes a year to fully recover from this type of surgery and get your confidence back mentally as well as physically. And Carl Lawson's still a young guy; he's still 27 years old, so he's got a lot of football and good football left to give the Jets.
Yeah, I agree. Um, so Keith, moving to the Knicks, didn't end the way we wanted. We talked about this last week. The concern I had was they hadn't um sort of looked their best version. Miami seemed to have been going from strength to strength, and I know some fans are in a panic, but people have to realise that at the beginning of the season, they thought the playing would be above expectations. Not only did the Knicks make the playoffs, but they won a playoff series and a playoff series against the Cavs, who was getting a buzz that, oh, with Donovan Mitchell, they have got a chance of certainly making the conference game, if nothing else. So I think it's a win from all that. Look, did they look great during the second round? No, but when was the last time they won a playoff series? So people have to take it step by step. They just didn't have enough to win this series against Miami, who's been there and done it more times. So
Mm-hmm.
I take it as a win. Knicks fans aren't necessarily known for being cool-headed, but I think in the light of day, you have to, with what they have, what did you expect? I did think there could have been a situation where they could have made it through, but I think they was hit by injuries here and there, not a big injury, but quickly was key
Yeah.
being out those last two games, and it just wasn't to be.
Well, quickly being out, I think, was a big factor. And you're right. I said this, a couple of times the last couple of weeks. The Knicks were playing with house money because you're right. We would have thought the play-in would be a good spot for them this year. Them them finishing fifth and winning their first round matchup with a better Cleveland team, but on paper anyway, record wise, and certainly they won the race for Donovan Mitchell, which I'm sure gave the Knicks a little added incentive. It's a win, and losing to the Heat right now, after watching the Heat knock off the Celtics in Boston in Game One, it doesn't look like such a bad loss. And I said, even then, the they're such a well coached team. Eric Spoelstra is a really good coach, probably maybe the best coach in the NBA, certainly the most underrated coach in the NBA. And they've got some talent. Jimmy Butler seems like he's on a mission. Um, I think this Knick team has nothing to be ashamed of. I think we learned a lot about some guys. I'm not so sure about Julius Randle anymore being the number one guy. They may have to make some adjustments there, but I think other than the first game against Cleveland and the last game against the Heat, R.J. Barrett reinforced my belief in him. He played really well in the playoffs, except for those two games. We found out that Brunson is everything and more than we expected, at least more than I expected. Josh Hart showed how important he was to this team because when he was out with foul trouble in Game 4, it caused them a huge issue. So I think we learned a lot about this Knicks team, and we know about some of the things that this team needs to do. And some of the kids stepped up. Quentin Grimes played very, very well in spots, played really well defensively. And Coach Tibbs, I think, learned a lot this year, too. And he changed his own approach and didn't just stick with his guys through thick and thin. You saw him sit Randall in fourth quarters and make some hard decisions with guys that, I mean, he's had a rap of sticking with his guys and not playing kids and not shaking it up enough. And I think he got away from that the second half of the season and into the playoffs. And I think Nick fans should be very happy. All Nick fans, not named Carlos, the Mad New Yorker, are very happy with Coach Tibbs and the progress his team has made.
I agree. One thing what I feel Leon Rose needs to do this off season is somehow move Fournier.
Yeah,
They're not doing anything without that. There's no one you can move without that. So you're not drafting anyone. Certainly not in the first round. So you've got to move Fournier so you can. They don't need much, but I'd love them to get 3 and D guy. Not a flashy name, but they need to move Fournier's money around. And no judgment on him. Look, he sat back.
it's a bad situation.
When called upon, did well. So
Yeah,
I think to find him a good option, they owe it to him as well.
it just wasn't a good fit. And if I'm not mistaken, his contract's expiring after next year, so it
It's
should be
yeah,
that hard to move, right? Teams are
yeah, I
looking for
agree.
contracts, so
It's going to be interesting how that plays out. I think he will have a value because teams didn't want to take on multiple years, but I think a team would take him on. Look, they may have to attach something to it to make them more eager to take him, but we'll see.
maybe so. And hey to Scott Kobe, listen, Scott, I think I left my the lights on at the home. Can you check my room, please? And if you're paying attention to earlier, Scott, you'll probably get that joke. CA's got a
Um,
comment here that I'll save till we talk about baseball.
but that's sort of where we're going. And now, so do you want to take care of the question?
He outside of
First?
New York City. He's a big Houston fan, by the way. However, eyes out of the area pay closer attention to H Town this time of year. Altuve is starting and batting leadoff tonight. The Astros are playing really good baseball. I talked about this on the MLB update earlier, and CA being a big Houston and Texas backer is certainly all over them. They got a 4-game winning streak, and Jose Altuve is back from his suspension, and his hurt. I'm sorry, that was misspeak by me. He's back, ready to play and batting leadoff tonight. Very important cog in that team, and I think Houston will start to hit on all cylinders and chase down Allen's Texas Rangers. By the way, very soon.
I agree with that. Look, I know some fans are not for Astros. I like you got to respect how they just build a contender year after year. All jokes aside, I do mean that seriously. They're
Yep.
always a fun team to watch. And yes, CA, we've got a lot of Astros podcasters on the channel, so be sure to check them out. I particularly recommend We're Just Fans. But yeah, I like what they're doing. Look, in baseball, you want your best stars around, so it's better for baseball that he's back, and hopefully there's no reoccurrence.
And CA, by the way, I don't know. I think I might have brought this up last Sunday, but I actually got into a heated debate with some guys in one of the baseball groups I belong to because they'd asked. They're constantly posting a picture and saying, what's the first thing you think of when you see X player X, and they put up Jose Altuve, and I said first ballot Hall of Famer, and man, did I set off a firestorm because all they want is him banned for life, for stealing signs, which God forbid we should do such a thing that they've only been doing for 150 years in this game. So I was sticking up for your boy Altuve.
Look, what I view it similar to you. Look, do you want cheating? No, you do not. But if you can ban everyone for cheating, so how come any PhD anyone that tests positive aren't banned for life. Are they going to get banned for having a sticky substance on their hand? If you banned everyone for life for any form of cheating in baseball, then the roster would not be too strong.
And Yankee fans, by the way, get over it. There's no bigger Yankee fan than me. We did not lose to them in 2017 because they were stealing signs. Sorry, we didn't score any runs. That's end of story. So enough. But on to more better things. Scott Kobe wants to know if we think the Yankees can get into the playoffs, which I'm sure you want to talk about the Yankees anyway.
Um, I think they probably will get in the playoffs. Will they have to make a few moves to make that happen? Yes, but I do, however, think it'll probably end exactly how the last 2 years have ended. If last year was, in my opinion, last year was worse than the year before, and I
Hmm.
think this year could be worse than last year, to be honest with you.
Yeah, listen, they're going to make the playoffs. They're going to recover from the start. I mean, if you told me before the season started that Rendon wouldn't start a game, Severino, who's going to start Sunday, hadn't started a game, um, that we wouldn't have fixed the left field or the third base issues. The bullpen would be in disarray with injury and bad performances by Holmes, and they'd be 6 games over 500 and only 6 games out of first with a tremendous start by the Rays. I would have said, great, I'll take that. So I think the Yankees will be fine in the regular season, but I don't think they've made the changes, as you've kind of alluded to, that are necessary to beat elite pitching in the postseason, and that's the tune we've been singing now for it seems like half a decade or better.
Yeah, I agree. Look, in my opinion, the Yankees have been atrocious the first part of the season, and they're still within touch and distance. So, um, in some ways, that's kind of a win for Yankees fans.
How many career homers do we think Altuve has? I'm not sure. I'm going to say 200. 200. Probably not even that many.
Um,
165. We'll wait for
yeah,
his answer
I'll
while we
go with
and
Keith.
stuff. I'll say 165, and we'll go on to something else while we wait for Scott to give us the answer.
Um, the
Oh,
Mets, what
we
are
got it.
you
192. I should have
on
stayed where I
like?
was. 200.
You definitely should have done. So the Mets, what you're thinking? Because look, we always said would the Braves be too strong? But I don't think any of us considered could the Marlins upset their party. Do you think they need to do something vis-a-vis the trade deadline to even make the playoffs, Keith?
Who are we talking about making a move? Sorry.
The Mets,
The Mets.
the Mets. Do you?
Probably they will. I think, look, they brought up some of their kids trying to bring some energy, even playing Batty in the outfield because they need help in left field. Buck, similar to Thibodeau, Buck has a bad habit of sticking with his guys, right? And you can't just stick with Marte game after game and watch him not perform. And well, they're probably going to need some pitching help. Do they need to do that to beat out the Marlins? I don't think so. I mean, for them to be able to be contenders, then I think they're going to need to make some moves. I mean, the Marlins, look, they got a really good pitching staff. Brought up another kid for his first start last weekend, pitched really well. They're a couple games over 500, but they've also been outscored by 52 runs. It's almost impossible to get outscored by that much and be over 500. It's a tremendous job by them and speaks well of their pitching, I think. But when they get beat really badly. Will the Mets be able to make the playoffs with the roster they have? Probably. I would expect them to start hitting, assuming Verlander and Scherzer don't have extended DL stays. I think the pitching will be good enough to get into the playoffs. Now, it's got to get better if they want to go deep into the playoffs. That's going to be the difference maker. And Steve Cohen has shown no shyness as far as going out and, taking on payroll. So I don't think there's going to be any doubt the Mets will be buyers. Problem is, Dan, how many sellers are there going to be? because with the 3 wild cards now, there's only about, come Memorial Day, there's only going to be about 5 teams that don't have a realistic chance to make the playoffs. So, as baseball that keeps adding wild cards, you have less and less sellers come trade deadline.
Yeah, I'd agree. Or certainly if there is sellers, the price goes up because you've got to pay them, give up that golden ticket, if you will.
A good point here by CA too. It's not. I don't think it's a coincidence that the Yankees have started to play really good baseball with Bader getting back and playing mostly every day in center field. Although he is off tonight, as he says, he's a really good player. He just needs to stay healthy.
I agree. He's someone we sort of marked at the start of the season for someone what was sneakily an important player on that roster. So look, it's good to see the young man back and helping the team.
And Scott's hot take is the Mets will not make the playoffs. It's gonna be hard, man, because the National League is not very deep. It's just not. I mean, somebody's going to win the Central by default.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it can be interesting. Um, we will see. So before we wrap things up, I want to recommend Scott's show, the Scott Cove show. He's on a few shows, helps Tanner out with his basketball show, but every Thursday night, normally 7 p.m. Him and Johnny Cruz host a guest. This week it's looking like Irvin Fry going to be joining him. I've got to confirm that, but yeah. Everyone, please check that out. And Keith, what have you got this Sunday? Have you got your Sunday stream consciousness? I know you're deep in renovations.
No, we will. We will be on Sunday. I mean, we could be preempted here and there, Fridays or Sundays from time to time for the next uh, month or so. But we're going to do our best to stay on schedule. We'll have Jim Beringer back on second week in a row live after Jim had wrapped up his own championship last week. He was back in the saddle with us talking the NHL playoffs, which we'll get into deep into again Sunday. We'll certainly dive into all the Major League Baseball news and talk more about. We'll certainly talk a lot, I would think, about the great Jim Brown as well Sunday, plus the NBA playoffs and pretty much anything else you can think of. You just never know what will come up in the Sunday stream of consciousness. That's the great part about it.
You certainly don't, and yeah, I encourage everyone to check that out. Tomorrow at noon, for with the Dan Harris show with special guest, and no doubt we'll be talking next then. So everyone, check it out, and I want to thank you, Keith, for joining me today. As fun as ever.
Always great to be here on a Friday with you, Dan, and talk New York sports because there's no better place to root for sports. Sorry for the rest of you guys, and that doesn't include the Patriots, of course, there, Scott. So I haven't thrown you overboard.
Thank you to everyone for joining us, and until next Friday, let's talk sport fans. Thanks for watching.
Have a great weekend, guys.